Welcome back to Create, Build, Manage Daily. There's a lot going on in the world, and I wanted our historian, Dr. Don Frazier, he's the director at the Texas Center at Schreiner University, to come back on the show. There's a couple of things, Dr. Frazier, that I found interesting, which I thought would be great to have you on. First of all, we mentioned at the top of the show, on this day in history, 1917, demonstrators took to the streets in Russia to basically protest over lack of bread and lack of confidence in the government. And also in this day in history, 1983, President Ronald Reagan referred to the USSR as an evil empire again for the second time in his political career. Don't you find those two things poetic as we're here in 2022?
You know, March has always been a rough year in Russia. I mean, it's the month that everybody gets deposed, everybody gets assassinated. I mean, it's rough in Russia. I don't know if it's a weather thing or the thaw is finally upon them, but it is a mess. So, you know, this is no different. This is just another momentous March in Russia. Maybe it's like, you know, we have seasonal depression. Maybe they have seasonal throw out the dictator in March. I don't know, but certainly that's happened. Let's talk about some of the things that are current events and look at a historical price. We got the price of oil. I mean, this is crazy when you look at it. It's, you know, today the U.S. is banning Russian oil. Look at this. I don't know if you can see that. The price of a barrel of oil, it's just continuing to go up. May even hit even higher than that. Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. I mean, everybody needs to just kind of get ready for life as they know it to be over, because the entire international order is being reshuffled while we watch, as we tune into our TikTok feed. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. In the old days, it'd take a little while for it to trickle down, but now we're watching it all go down in real time. And the world is going to be different. And what's remarkable to me is the green energy people are going to get their cake and eat it too, you know? Right. They're going to, you know, all of a sudden oil is going to be unaffordable, so we're going to look at alternatives in a whole new way. But will there be pressure? I mean, Dr. Frazier, will there be pressure to open up that Keystone pipe again? I would think there's a lot of political pressure for that. There's a lot of jumping up and down about that right now. And it'll be interesting to see if that has the kind of effect that people think it might. But anyway you slice it, we're having to think about the world in so many new ways that we weren't really prepared to do not too long ago. So, you know, my gosh, think about your life about Valentine's Day of this year. Right. And then think about your life at Valentine's Day 2 years ago. I know. And, you know, we are just hurtling through space, and everything seems to be sliding underneath our feet. So walk me through quickly what, and I say quickly because we can do a whole show on this, but the comparison between what got the U.S. involved in World War I, World War II, and what we're seeing today. Because I think seeing that historical perspective will kind of bring this to light for us. World War I, we were doing our level best to stay out of it, but we were also doing our level best to make sure that our friends had weapons. And then ultimately that bled over into incidents that finally convinced us that we needed to jump in. A lot of sympathy for the Germans, actually, at the very beginning of World War I. Then World War II, we get sucked into that by embargoing and shutting down trade with Japan, which boxes them into an economic corner, and they decide to go for broke and hope that a preemptive strike will take us out, and it just flat didn't. And then the Germans decided to throw in for good measure, so we couldn't avoid it anymore. So there's parallels between World War I with grand alliances, World War II with putting economic squeezes on belligerents that we ought to pay attention to. I dare to say, when you're describing what we did to Japan that ultimately led to Pearl Harbor, and you and I have talked about this on the show before, we had our cybersecurity expert on here earlier this hour. It seems like Russia may be ready
to strike? Because you mentioned it, we're putting them in a corner right now.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not sure what kind of Russia emerges from this, and what that Chinese and Russian axis looks like. That sort of alignment looks like. But it's just not going to be the same. You know, I've lived my entire life. You've lived your entire life. We've all lived with this sort of Russian threat. And a couple of things are emerging. Apparently, they siphoned off a lot of their defense spending and misappropriated in other directions, because this is not an army that was ready to fight any kind of war except for a show war. And that's looking pretty grim. But it may also embolden people in ways that a better showing by the Russian military might not have. So nothing going forward is going to be the same that we remember.
I don't know. What should we do to prepare? What in history can we look back on and kind of prepare ourselves? Because people forget, because it was 77 years ago, but Americans had to, for 3 years, sacrifice things in order to win the war. What are we going to be sacrificing?
We're going to be sacrificing our economy, for starts. You know, it's the fuel price. Fuel price sets the basement for the price of everything.
Right.
And so once that goes up, we're all, you know, jumping from the third and fourth floor all of a sudden, whereas we've gotten kind of used to not having to do that. So there's going to be a lot of economic pain, a lot more than I think people are thinking. And this isn't going to pass quickly. I've said before, actually, on this show, that we're probably already in World War III.
Right.
We're just not in the hot shooting part of it.
Yeah, and I want to distinguish what you're saying there, because you're right. So the price of gas goes up, the cost of goods goes up. You're going to see it at the grocery store, you're going to see it on your Amazon delivery, you're going to see it everywhere. It's interesting, though, and we got less than a minute, but one interesting thing that's unique is we've learned to work at home. So in that sense, we might go back to that hybrid or working from home to save on gas prices, but that doesn't save on the cost of a gallon of milk when that has to be shipped to the grocery store. Let's give your website again. You're with Schreiner University, the Texas Center, and we want people to check you out as well, the good work you're doing down there. You got the president in Texas today. How about that?
Well, how about that?
How about that?
That's good. It's time for him to show the flag out here.
Dr. Frazier, we always appreciate you. We always reach out to you like just hours before the show and pull you in, and we appreciate your availability, because I think it's important we continue to look at the historical perspective of things. You're watching Create, Build, and Manage Daily. I'm Scott Miller. We'll be back right after this.